Talk to me now? Ever? Or have I taken up with the only sexually active Trappist monk in Northwest 6?
Of course I'll talk to you.
Hooray! The drive in the car was just terrific. I now know what Norman Tebbit feels like when he's stuck in a lift with Arthur Scargill.
You shouldn't have poured that Singapore sling over Muriel's head.
I knew that was the trouble.
Well, of course that's the trouble. I mean, what else? I mean, that is a reasonably significant event. I mean, they're friends of mine. And Malcolm and Thing, I mean, not Muriel.
Thing?
Pat.
Pam. God, you're sexist.
I just don't get on with Malcolm's women. How can you stand it?
She's very nice.
She's thick, Liz. She got less upstairs than a bungalow. She chose that wallpaper.
I did not throw the Singapore sling over Muriel. She was sitting down, I was standing over her, explaining something, and I accidentally spilled it.
Yes, as I remember, you were explaining that she was the most boring person you'd ever met in your life, bar none. And it was a sort of assisted accidental spill, wasn't it? I mean, everyone was calling you Anna Ford afterwards.
Liar, who was?
Well, Geoffrey, for instance.
Stuff, Geoffrey.
But, I mean, you are a bit violent, aren't you? I mean, fair dues.
What?
Well, you did kick in your husband's car that time, as a matter of fact.
That was not my husband's car. It was my husband's boss's car. My husband was at it, in the back, with his fancy woman. What would you have done? Changed the oil and turtle waxed it?
What was she on about?
Oh, well, she was giving me a bad time about my job. I mean, all right, I work in advertising. Sometimes I push a product that I'm not over the moon about, health or quality-wise. But I really don't see that I have to be hauled before Muriel's Nuremberg trials every time I meet her. Bloody stupid hairstyle, anyway. Fancy looking like Margaret Thatcher when you're only 29 years old.
What did she say?
Oh, I don't know. Well, we did those chocolate bars. Do you remember? A very successful promotion. According to Muriel, there is hardly a child in her class of 8-year-olds that hasn't got a full set of dentures. Butter, I did. Apparently being in the same room with a pat of butter is enough to give you a cardiac arrest. I was in fear and trembling. She'd remember I once did cigarettes.
You didn't?
Don't you start. God, I hate that woman.
Pot of tea would be nice, wouldn't it?
Certainly would. I'll do it.
No, it's okay.
I'll tell you what really gets to me about Muriel.
What's that?
She's absolutely right. I think I hate my job. Oh, I think I hate life sometimes.
Ah, well, now you're talking.
You don't ever get worried about your work, do you? In any way?
Well, I don't do any. Actually, I do worry sometimes whether I'm doing enough to keep Napley in his place.
Who's Napley?
My heir apparent.
Roth leads a double life, you know.
Does he?
Yeah. Struck me the other day. There's no other explanation. No one could be as dull and boring as that all the time. Oh, hello, Dylan. Dad here. Is Mummy there? Did you? Uh-huh. Yes. Jolly good. Get Mummy for me, would you? There's a good chap. Dylan, that's a very rude word. A very rude word. You mustn't use... Well, you did hear me say it, yes. But I just called Mummy a bad driver, and then I reversed over the hover mower. That was different. Which is as maybe, Dylan, but I didn't leave the hover mower in the drive in the first place, did I? And anyway, I'm an adult. You must never use words like that, ever. I don't believe you. Miss Mountney would never say a word like that. She's a Seventh-day Adventist. Well, I don't know exactly, but they're very good people. They go to church. Get Mummy for me, will you? Don't be tiresome, Dylan. You know perfectly well what a church is. There's one at the end of our road. Just get Mummy. It's a hi-fi warehouse now, I know, but it was a church. That's why it's got coloured windows. Get Mummy for me. It does not say Jesus saith all our videos are guaranteed 12 months. As you well know, that's a bit of an old poster. Now, if you don't get Mummy for me, I'll beat you black and blue when I get home. Dylan, I do not have to give you a potted history of the Christian religion just to get you to bring Mummy to the phone. If you don't get her, this instant, first thing tomorrow morning, I'm taking your chopper to the Oxfam shop. Now, I mean that. Don't cry, Dylan. You're a big boy now. Just get Mummy. I'm on extension 713. Tell Mummy to phone me. 713. Little basket. God, I could stake him out sometimes.
Why isn't he at school?
Oh, he probably burnt it down. Or knifed the teachers. I'm at my wit's end with him. Did you have troubles with yours?
Oh, yes. Well, perhaps not quite to the same degree.
Deborah and I really don't see eye to eye about Dylan. It causes dreadful friction. The atmosphere at home sometimes is appalling. That doesn't help in itself.
No.
Claims analysis. Deborah, at last I'd given up all hope. What? No, of course I'm not going to take his chopper to the Oxfam shop. I just had to say that. Yes, you did. You did. But I didn't use the hover that day. Now, don't you remember? You'd used it. You just gone over those paving stones and said how good it was. That was the day I pruned the Philadelphus. Well, I'm sorry. I've said I'm sorry. I don't mean you're a bad driver, Deborah, but as a matter of fact, you did leave the hover mower in the drive. Well, of course I shouldn't have driven into it. I'm not trying to get out of anything, Deborah. I just wanted the snotty little bugger to bring you to the phone and he wouldn't. Deborah! Oh, no. I hate life.
Ah, well, now you're talking, Napley.
Morning, Ruth. There's the second half of the first quarter's analysis. I did the first half myself, as usual.
Morning, Ruth. You well?
Yes, thanks. You?
I saw Malcolm last night. He sends his love.
Malcolm.
Yes.
And Thing?
No, they've split up. He's with a new girl now, Pat. Or Pam. She's not as bright as...
Well, she was as dim as a Tok H lamp.
Yeah. I can't think what Malcolm sees in them. They've just done their playset.
Oh, yes. Nice, is it?
Well, no, it's perfectly dreadful. Quite astonishing wallpaper, sort of midnight blue with multicoloured reflective fragments.
Oh, I know. Asteroid.
Asteroid? That's right, yes, she said. Yes, asteroid.
We've got that in the sitting room.
Morning.
Morning.
Today I'm having lunch with the great white chief. Blanchard himself, would you believe?
Good.
Oh, something big must be in the offing. I've already had a working breakfast.
Have you really?
You know my daughter is to marry and has twins by a pithecanthropoid savage with a American plume.
Oh, yes.
Yes, of course you do. Well, he came to see me at breakfast. Savages proffer gifts when their intentions are friendly. He snapped a lager off his six-pack. Have a drink, Dad, he said. He calls me Dad because he enjoys watching a grown man cry. I thanked him gravely and said I preferred brown ale with muesli. Sarcasm means as much to him as a rainbow does to a warthog. He nipped out and got me a Guinness. Nearest I could get, Dad, he says.
What was he after?
Well, fatherhood has wrought a sea change. The plume is gone. He's pawned his earring. And he was in the bathroom so long this morning, I think he must be taking washing lessons. Life is overtaking him, all right, as it does us all. He solemnly placed 750 crumpled and grubby pounds on the table in front of me. What's that, I said. Sold me music centre, Dad. The music centre is one of those portable things, about the size of a suitcase. When the peace and quiet in the streets got a bit oppressive, he'd walk up and down with it at full volume. So that everybody could keep abreast of the latest chart toppers free of charge. I think he saw it as a sort of community service. You know, doing his bit.
750 is an awful lot for a music centre.
What I said. It appears the music centre was not all he was able to sell. There's a dreadful bend in the road where I live, Dad, he said, winking and leering at me. The lorries has to swerve something dreadful and things keep falling off the back of them. So he has amassed this money and he proceeds to put this scheme to me.
Karen says Mr. Blanchard would like a word.
Oh, right, thank you, then.
Claims analysis. Oh, it's just a sec. Well, he's just here, actually. Yes? Oh, yes, I remember. Yes, well, I'll tell him, Dylan. Yes, he is just here, actually. And goodbye to you.
What did he want?
You know that Waterford glass we gave you when Angela was born?
Yes.
Well, apparently Dylan has just taken it to the Oxfam shop.
Hello, Muriel. How are you? It's Liz here. Or perhaps I should say it's Anna Ford here. Yes, well, thing is, people keep telling me how good this humble pie stuff tastes, so I thought I'd try a basinful. Yes. First off, I want to pay for a new hairdo. For you, you know. It looked really nice, by the way. People were saying. Oh, I don't know. Well, Geoffrey, for instance. Well, look, you know, I'm really sorry it happened. A million apologies. Well, that's good of you. I'm really sorry. I quite agree. I quite agree. One must be responsible for the consequences of one's actions. Yes, you told me about heart disease and butter, yes. And the little girl with the dentures, yes, it's really shocking. Oh, she didn't have heart disease as well, by any... Of course, it's not funny. No, I don't know what came over me, Muriel. Well, now, I've thought about what you said, and, well, I've decided to give up my job, so I've got a lot to thank you for. Yes. Well, I'm glad you're glad. Patronising prig. Oh, I do so agree. Well, I'm not sure what I'll do, Muriel, but I'll find something, you know me. Bit of gun running, prostitution, white slavery. You know, selling asbestos-laced cigarettes to the third world. Well, frankly, Muriel, because I have just about had enough. I mean, what about motes in your own black kettles, eh? I look at the youth of today and I remember my own school days. You so very sure you're doing such a spiffaroo job, eh? Best days of your life, and they're spent walled up facing some ditchwater dull, platitude-mouthing, narrow-minded failure with a hairdo like a transsexual Brillo pad. You feel good about that, eh? Do you? Well, I'm getting excited, Muriel, because I happen to believe that getting excited is a good thing. I know that you don't, but don't worry. You'll never be in any danger of being either excited or exciting. You are the dullest, most boring and irritating person I have ever shared a planet with. Ah! Well done, Elizabeth. First class. Excellent. Well, I bet she really feels apologised to. Oh, God.
And, how's Liz?
Oh, she's fine, thanks, yes. Yeah, she's calmed down a lot these days.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
It's her job she's concerned about now.
Really? I'm going through a bit of a job crisis myself, actually.
Are you?
You don't do any work in your job, do you?
Well, the least possible, I suppose.
But it has purpose, an end product, or service, doesn't it? Your line of business?
Yes.
Yes. What is your line of business, actually?
Insurance.
Yes. Oh, yes, of course, insurance. Oh, yes, insurance. I must have a word with you later. I've just had a most appalling quote for my car.
Oh, yes.
Thought they were offering to buy it when I saw the figure. You see, it's all to do with the scheme of things and whether you feel you're flowing with or against the tide.
In what way?
Well, you live in the West. You have vague feelings of guilt about having all the world's food and medicine and so on. So, to assuage it, you drop a few bob in the War on Want box, and eventually some poor little starving sod in Ethiopia ends up with a bowl of brown rice or whatever and doesn't starve to death until the next week. You feel perfectly uja cum spiff and start leafing through video recorder catalogues or planning a winter break in Tenerife or the Gambia. Well, is that the way things should be? I mean, when you're in a restaurant and the bill seems too much, but you pay it anyway, I mean, do you spare a thought for the single parent in Toxteth who has to live on that sum of money for a week? Kids and all. I used to have a patient like that once. Twins, she had.
Dear me.
It was years ago. I used to have to fill in Social Security dockets for my fee. God, yes. Years ago. They were babies then. They'll be signing on now. But you see, my point is that there is nothing like enough guilt. It is a function of guilt to make us put things right. I mean, you should put half your salary in the War on Want box. Do as your guilt prompts you. And I spent my entire life trying to remove guilt. I should be encouraging it. I've relieved hundreds of people of perfectly good guilt for years. I tell you, I feel pretty bad about it. There you are. You see what I mean? And that's just policyholder only to drive.
I have a bombshell, Ruth.
Before you tell me,
Yes?
tell me about the Savage and the £750.
Yes, I will. It'll give me time to collect myself. Well, he looked at me, this alien being. He looked at me and said, "See, Fringy's dead. It isn't the same for us lot like it was for you. See, I'm not going to work, am I? And now we got Bill and Ben, we got to get sorted." Bill and Ben. And it came within a whisker of being Butch and Sundance. Well, he's quite right, of course. He never is going to work. Well, I mean, neither are you, but at least you swung it so you get paid. The 750 is a deposit. He reckons for a cottage in the West Country. I am to pay the mortgage. Well, you'll have to, won't you, Dad, because I'm not going to work, am I? He is, after all, meeting his responsibilities in the only way open to him, by putting the bite on me. 750 is the limit, actually. The police have done an unwelcome bit of road straightening in his area. Now, the prospect of taking on a mortgage at my time of life would be bleak enough. But as this branch is about to be closed down and we're all to be made redundant, it really is a bit of a facer.
Pardon?
I think I've filled this in correctly. It's definitely no extra for Gerald to be a named driver, is it?
No.
No? Oh, well, that's wonderful. It's a huge saving.
Good.
I've sold it all, you know.
Really?
Given the proceeds to charity.
Good. Oh.
Well, I haven't really. It's all stacked up in the spare room at home. Well, I couldn't sell it, you see. It's half Gerald's.
Oh, I see.
But it gives a much better impression, I think.
Yes.
So, how are you? Anything to report?
Well, I'm afraid so, yes. I'm going to be made redundant. My branch is being closed down completely.
Oh, no.
Afraid so.
Well, that's dreadful.
Yes. Yes, it was quite a blow.
How many of you altogether?
It's nearly 50, I think.
My God, it's monstrous. The way people's lives are being ruined these days. I sometimes wonder if politicians realize the full horror of what's going on. I mean, the individual human misery, you, your colleagues, the story endlessly repeated all over the country. It's perfectly appalling. I say, it won't affect that policy at all, will it?
I wrote to Muriel.
Did you?
A really good letter. You know, it was the apology of all time.
Good.
I mean, I really had a go on the phone.
Did you?
Oh, boy. But it was an ace letter.
Good.
I mean, you may not find anything else, Philip.
I know.
And if you do, you'll have to work. You must really try and get transferred within the firm. I mean, even if it means Milton Keynes. Why did I give up my job?
Couldn't you get it back?
I suppose I could. If I grovelled to Carter. Another grovelling phone call. Oh, God. Well, let's get it over. That bloody woman.
What woman?
That bloody Muriel. She's why I walked out of a perfectly good job. I mean, what was so bad about it? Either you subscribe to selfish Western capitalism or you go off and you do an Albert Schweitzer number. I mean, what's so bloody marvellous about teaching establishment propaganda in a junior school?
Who are you phoning?
Hello, Muriel. You are a klutz. You are klutz 1. Well, I don't know what a klutz is, but it is not a nice thing to be, and you are definitely a big one.